This is the Medical Marijuana Radio Network.
Walking down the sidewalk, kicking my feet as I'm moving to the music. Step to the beat. I woke up today, canceled all my plans, and I stepped right outside with my guitar in my hands, and the notes became loud as the sound caressed the air, and I kicked it up a notch as I strolled without a care, 'cause I'm going down the road to a brand new place, and I'll get there with a smile on my face. Yeah, so lift me up. I'm moving on, singing and dancing while I play my song. Yeah, I'm having a good time, keeping it going. Come on, clap your hands and won't you sing along? And now let's take it up high. Give our dreams their wings to fly. Gotta keep the fire, keep the fire burning, keep the hope alive. You gotta keep it turning.
Identify yourself, please.
This is Detroit's Progressive Talk, 1310 WDTW, Dearborn, Detroit. The comments, ideas, and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the show participants only. Nothing stated in this program reflects the ideas, opinions, or beliefs of this radio station and or Clear Channel Radio.
Stay tuned for the Medical Marijuana Radio Show, brought to you by the American Medical Marijuana Professionals on Gratiot and Roseville. For certifications, call 1-877-RX-420-99.
Are we there yet?
Not yet.
You think we'll be there soon? We're not long.
When you head out on these long family road trips, you don't want to be in the car any longer than you need to. So I don't even start unless I've got the right guidance.
Turn left now.
I'm like that with taxes too. TurboTax has a unique GPS feature that guides me step by step. It searches for every deduction and credit I deserve, which helps me know it's done right and gets me to my maximum refund, guaranteed.
Try it online now at TurboTax.com. Choose easy. Money back guarantee details at TurboTax.com.
Federal agents in Spokane raided several medical marijuana dispensaries today, enforcing federal law that makes selling or possessing marijuana illegal. But for some families, that drug is a godsend in treating a variety of diseases. 2-year-old Cash Hyde was diagnosed last year with a stage 4 brain tumor. He nearly died more times than his family can count, and was miserable from the high-dose chemo coursing through his tiny body until his dad turned to a controversial place and gave cannabis to his young son. KXLY4's Melissa Luck is here, been working on this story.
Yeah, controversial, Robin, is an understatement. Medical marijuana is a political football both here in Washington and in Cashie's home state of Montana. But his father said to me, when your child is dying of cancer, you'll do anything you can to help. His choice defied doctors, but he says saved Cashie's life. June 21st, 2008 is a day Mike and Callie Hyde will never forget.
He was just a healthy little boy, born there in Missoula.
Cash Michael Hyde's very first birthday, a family now complete. They never could have imagined the journey little Cashie's life would take.
He was just your average, happy little kid, and then he just started to get sick.
It was shortly before Cashie's second birthday when Dad Mike knew something wasn't right.
Oh, he started being very tired, sleeping a lot, very cranky. He started to throw up. We started taking him to the doctor, and the doctor would tell us that he had mono.
For 6 weeks, it was the same diagnosis over and over, but Mike refused to accept what doctors were telling him. He knew, like any parent would, that something was terribly wrong.
I was like, it feels like he's dying in my arms. We need to take him somewhere else, you know, and so we took him to the ER, and that's when they did a CAT scan on him, and they found a 4.5 centimeter tumor in his brain. They loaded him up, and they were gone to Salt Lake City within a matter of a couple hours of finding the tumor.
At Salt Lake's Primary Children's Hospital came the devastating news. Their little boy was facing incredible odds. Brain surgery revealed a peanut tumor wrapped around Cashie's optic nerve.
When we arrived in Salt Lake in May, Cashy was so sick that, I mean, his eye was starting to get pushed out. He was sleeping 16 to 18 hours a day. He was vomiting. He was pretty much as sick as, you know, you can get without being, you know, on your deathbed.
Doctors cut into Cashy's brain to remove what they could, only about 10% of the tumor. The Hydes could only hope aggressive treatment could get the rest. 3 rounds of chemo followed by stem cell rescue, then 3 rounds of high-dose chemo after that. A difficult treatment plan for anyone, so imagine what it did to a 2-year-old kid.
So the first night of chemo, we did 10 hours with the seizures down in the ICU, And, you know, the doctors told us then he could have brain damage from these seizures. We don't know where it's going to be in the morning. Just going to have to wait and find out.
Kashi spent his second birthday in a hospital bed, swollen and sick from the medication intended to save his life. Doctors were uncertain he would make it to his third birthday.
It's overwhelming, I guess, to say the least. And we had a lot of scary things happen in June. He got a blood infection, went into septic shock, went to the ICU, ended up coding, and they had to resuscitate him. I was standing like 2 feet away. I had to watch the whole thing. There was a lot of days we were getting told we weren't going to beat it. You know, you're not going to take him home. He is going to die. And those are the days where you really got to really believe.
They believed and they prayed. High-dose chemo was killing his cancer, but it was making Kashi sicker than ever. He was taking 120 milligrams a day of 5 different drugs to try to make him comfortable. But that, Mike said, wasn't helping ease Kashi's pain.
That's going to help get the tape off.
I'm going to hold this, okay?
By the end of September, he had gone 40 days without eating. He was vomiting 9 to 10 times a day. He couldn't lift his head off his pillow. He was literally laying there shivering in his bed. And the doctors came in and I said, is there anything we can do for Cash?
The doctors had no answers, so Mike found his own. Relief in the form of a controversial oil, cannabis, illegal for you and I to possess, and something Kashi's doctors wouldn't even discuss. Mike got authorization to give Kashi the oil, and without telling them why, he told the doctors to wean Kashi off the nausea cocktail. Inserted through Kashi's feeding tube, a tiny amount of oil replaced all those drugs. The result, Mike says, was almost immediate.
You're watching a kid that hasn't had the will to eat in 4 months, 5 months, actually take a bite of something. He hadn't eaten a thing in 40 days, and it was really incredible just to watch him take a bite of a piece of cheese, you know. It's showing that he wants to live.
There you go.
Kashi did his last round of high-dose chemo with no anti-nausea drugs. Mike says the doctors told him they were amazed. Mike never told them why.
I wanted to tell him, hey, he's on cannabis oil, but I was afraid they would take it away from him.
We wanted to tell you about the side effects, the possible dangers of giving medical marijuana to a kid as young as Kashi. But even though it's perfectly legal in Washington and in his home state of Montana, we couldn't get a single doctor to talk to us on camera. That's how we ended up here at the THC clinic in East Spokane.
And I see a lot of folks, and they come in from all walks of life and say they receive benefit.
Sherry Allen is a nurse practitioner from Oregon. She comes to Spokane every couple of weeks to evaluate medical marijuana patients and sign off on their permits.
What I try to do here at this office is create an atmosphere that is truly medical, because I do believe that cannabis is a medical, and we are trying to use it as a medicine.
She believes in the power of this drug and its benefit for cancer patients. She signs off sometimes on 50 patients a day. Then I asked her about authorizing marijuana for kids.
It is not common, okay? And I'm not going to say whether or not I've authorized for a child.
It's a typical answer, as doctors are concerned about federal law and company policies. But Mike Hyde doesn't care about the controversy or about the political battle over this drug. He cares that his son survived and is convinced not only did the cannabis oil make Kashi feel better, it prevented long-term damage to his organs. For Mike, the living proof is in this vibrant 2-year-old boy.
Yeah, it's very controversial, it's very scary, but there's nothing more scary than about losing your child.
A week after we did this interview, Kashi was back in Salt Lake for scans, finding out he's cancer-free. He's back home in Missoula, back with his family, back to teasing his big brother Colty. Kashi will spend his third birthday like every kid should, with the fight of his life behind him.
And the state of Montana estimates that of the 28,000 medical marijuana patients in the state, 51 are kids under the age of 18. And Robin, we try to get those numbers from Washington, but our state does not track who has medical marijuana permits, who's allowed to get them. It's just simply not tracked, so we have no idea here in Washington.
And after today's raids, we kind of understand that it might be even longer before we have any more answers.
That's right, and that's something that we talked to the Hydes about at the time. We did this interview a couple of weeks ago, and that's the one thing Mike said, whether you agree with it or not, every time they take down one of these dispensaries,
there might be a kid or someone in a hospital somewhere that depends on it. So everybody involved just wants the government and the jurisdictions to just get it sorted out.
And you can make comments on this story and let us know what you think on KXLY.com later tonight. Thanks so much. Well, Cash's family got tremendous support from friends, family, and strangers during his treatment. Now, they're paying it forward. The Cash Hyde Foundation raises money and provides things like these reggae runners to children's hospitals. They donated several to Sacred Heart Children's Hospital earlier this month. The vehicles are outfitted with IV poles so kids undergoing treatment can get out of the rooms and have a little fun.
Countdown to launch. It's the Medical Marijuana
Launch commit.
Radio Show.
Guidance is internal. Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. Power clear.
Roll program. The Medical Marijuana Radio Show is a production of the Medical Marijuana Radio Network.
You tuned in to that Medical Marijuana Show. 855-MMM Radio. Keep it legal, keep it legal, keep it legal, keep it legal. Hey! You tuned in to that Medical Marijuana Show. 855-MMM Radio.
Folks, Denise ain't here. We got the good graces of Rick Thompson in the studio, and we are still live in Detroit.
Okay, Steve is the host with the co-host Denise. Starting at noon Saturdays every week. Yes, we keeping you legal. Legislators and lawyers, doctors and the growers. The show is for the people. Michigan Medical Marijuana, no hassle. We talk about anything, any issue we can handle. Call us up and let us know what is on your mind. And make sure when you do it legal every time. Hey! You tuned in to that Medical Marijuana Show.
Welcome to another Medical Marijuana Radio Show. Boy, we got a jam-packed show and not much time to do everything in. Did you see the piece on the front there? That was an actual video piece. We've been running that video piece on the internet on a previous show. And if you see this, it'll just cheer you up, the fact that this is going on. That there are people that are this sick. See, we've been talking about this for eons now, that there are sick people and they're being deprived medication under the threat of being imprisoned. And for what? I mean, is this what, the judicial system, is this what American justice is these days? Is that what we've come down to? Rick Thompson, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming today.
Hey, glad to be here every week and every opportunity I get to. And it is what our society is coming to. Did you notice on the broadcast where the reporter said, it's always possible that when they shut down one of these dispensaries, there may be somebody that really needs this that's being taken away.
Right.
No,
it's the presumption
possible.
Is ridiculous, isn't it?
It's a guarantee that there are tons of people that in every one of these dispensaries or compassion centers, regardless of the state, are dependent upon that particular form of medication.
So, in the face of the places being closed down in this state by our Attorney General Bill Schuette, Mr. BS, Billy Bong, and then you see stuff like that going down in Montana, and then you see California going. It goes on and on. It just doesn't stop. And there are people in the eastern part of our country right now trying to set up their laws, and they're all doing this in the face of federal threat. They're threatening people from just starting to enact the law. Hey, don't enact these laws because we're going to come after you. It's all a lot of boo.
And there are 4 governors out there right now that are bold enough to ask the federal government to reschedule marijuana in the face of all of the Department of Justice hassles that they're doing, all of the issues that we see coming up from a federal jurisdiction level. And that's Washington, that's Montana, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. If I'm not sure what they.
I think New Hampshire is working on something.
So the most important
DC,
thing is,
don't forget DC's in there.
DC's in there, but I don't think they've submitted any kind of a letter to the federal government asking for rescheduling.
Right, you're right about that.
So we have some bold people out there in positions of power that are leading the way. And my question is, where is Governor Rick Snyder on this issue? Where is Governor Rick Snyder on the whole concept of rescheduling? Because it's obvious that this is a solution that we could use for Michigan to reduce our prison debt that we have, to reduce the number of people incarcerated, and to reduce the load on the court system at a time when they are actually reducing the number of judges out there able to give justice to the citizens.
Well, they're reducing everything. The police forces, the whole 9 yards. Look, on today's program, pull the music up a little bit. Pull it up a little bit. Hello, pull the music up. Thank you. Coming up on the program today, we got Judge Gray Judge Grace from LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition out in California.
What a warrior.
Also on the program today, Pony Boy from Los Marijuanos. We'll tell you about that. Don't go away, folks. More to come on the Medical Marijuana Radio Show. Don't go away.
We'll be right back on the Medical Marijuana Radio Show. The Medical Marijuana Radio Network.
Okay, folks, listen up. Here's the deal. Due to overwhelming popularity and demand, and to the fact that we've sponsored the Medical Marijuana Buddy Awards, the first annual ever Michigan Medical Marijuana Awards are absolutely free to nominations. That's right, because we've got sponsorship for the event. So we wanted to open up this to make it as wide as possible, and now we're accepting nominations absolutely free of charge on the front page of RadioWeedShow.com. Nominate your friend for a Medical Marijuana Achievement Award today. You can do it at RadioWeedShow.com. Medical marijuana certification. And now you can find out everything you need to know online at getpotid.com. Or write down this toll-free number, 855-DOC-CERT. A friendly specialist will direct you to our Farmington Hills office. Medical marijuana certification. GetPotID.com. It's the key to getting your card. Information, resources, and in the end, if you're qualified, a medical card. Call toll-free right now, 855-DOC-CERT. That's 855-DOC-CERT. It's GetPotID.com.
The Greene Collective.
Hey, medical marijuana patients, it's time to discover what all the buzz is about in Ann Arbor.
The Greene Collective.
The Green Bee Collective is busy making sure your patient needs are met with high-quality, locally grown meds.
The Greene Bee Collective.
Get to know the information, the research, the benefit available to your condition.
The Greene Bee Collective.
Weekly specials in just minutes from downtown Ann Arbor and I-94.
The Greene Bee Collective.
The details are sweet at MMMGreenBee.com. Call 734-929-2553 now. The Ohm of Medicine is a state-of-the-art facility in Ann Arbor where art and passion meet patience and safe quality access. Get to the place that has top-of-the-line security, atmosphere, art, and most importantly, a highly trained and caring, compassionate staff. And the convenience is clear. Ohm of Medicine is easy to get to in downtown Ann Arbor. Private, well-maintained, handicap-accessible restrooms, convenient, secure parking in 2 nearby lots with complimentary validation. The Ohm of Medicine. Log on to omofmedicine.org. Hey, Steve Greene here for the Medical Marijuana Certifications at AMMP. They're the American Medical Marijuana Professionals. You'll find them just north of Utica Road on Gratiot in Roseville. Their address is 28349. Now, call-ins are welcome, but you're better off calling for an appointment. They have a toll-free number, 877-RX-420-99. That's 877-RX-420-99 for American Medical Marijuana Professionals. That's AMMP on Gratiot in Roseville. The patient's place for medical marijuana education and safe access is Third Coast. Beautiful downtown Ypsilanti is where you can get safe, affordable access to education and materials concerning your specific needs and quality products designed to meet your exacting needs. It's the Third Coast, 19 North Hamilton in Ypsilanti. Convenient hours, friendly, professional, compassionate. Call Third Coast today, 734-487-5402. That's the Third Coast Compassion Center in downtown Ypsilanti, 734-487-5402. The law offices of Targowski and Grow remind you to stand up for your rights. Always treat law enforcement with respect, but if you're detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search or seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to talk to my attorneys, John Targowski and Daniel Grow. Targowski and Grow have the education and experience you need to be successful in Michigan courts. Call Targowski and Grow toll-free, 800-957-1069. The law offices of Targowski and Grow, 800-957-1069.
When I was young, I knew something was wrong. My mother would forget to pick me up from school.
Drugs and alcohol may make you forget your problems. And more.
Then she remembered something. Me! My mom worked hard to be in recovery. And now she is here for me. Hi, Mom!
You ready? Let's go! For drug and alcohol treatment for you or someone you love, call 1-800-662-HELP. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
We've made it all the way into January. It's really our first show of the year. The last program we did was on New Year's Eve, so welcome to the new year. I feel funny saying that. I'm really looking forward to what's coming up in the new year, Rick Thompson.
Me too. I tell you what, we've got an exciting 2012 being an election year. A lot of things going on, especially in January, too. That's quite an active calendar for this month.
With us on the phone out of California with law enforcement against prohibition is Judge Gray. Judge Gray, welcome to the Medical Marijuana Radio Show.
Steve, thank you. Been looking forward to it.
We're really excited, super excited to have you on because, just looking at everything that you've done, we owe you a debt of gratitude, sir. I mean, the things that you go out and help people accomplish with your voice is immensely important, and we want to honor and recognize you for that.
Well, that's nice, and thank you. Honestly, because of my background, a former Navy JAG attorney, former federal prosecutor in Los Angeles, and now a retired judge after 25 years on the bench, I have seen really what the harms are caused by drug prohibition, such that I've concluded the most patriotic thing and the most effective thing I can do for the country I love is to help us repeal this failed and hopeless program.
Well, let's get into about why this has failed and help people understand who don't understand why it's failed in a moment. Let me invite people in to call and talk to you, Judge. If you want to call and be on the program today, it's 810-423-2350. One more time, 810-423-2350. Alternatively, you can call 248-848-1310 right here on 1310 AM, WDTW, Detroit's Progressive Talk. Rick Thompson, do you have anything you want to talk to Judge Gray about offhand?
Well, certainly. And in fact, Judge, making the transition from someone who's in law enforcement to someone who is commonly seen as opposing law enforcement, that has to be a transition that is not something you enter into lightly. And I know that you commented briefly about your experiences on the bench and personally that drove you to crusade in this way. Is there a particular instance that you can draw from, a particular experience that you'd like to relate to our listeners that might bring into perspective why you made such a dramatic change in perspective?
Yes, Rick. First of all, I've never been and am not anti-law enforcement. And there are lots and lots of people who are in law enforcement who have the same feelings I do. Some are still active, and so they feel they can't speak publicly, but privately they talk the same way I do. In direct answer to your question, it was a kind of a grading process, but I still remember concluding when some really bad guys in the criminal justice system just got barely a slap on the wrist and came to the realization that the tougher we get with regard to nonviolent drug offenses, literally the softer we get with regard to the prosecution of robbery, rape, and murder. We only have so many resources in the criminal justice system, and we are not using them effectively such that, and I actually cite this in my book, Why Our Drug Laws Have Failed, that we were only half as successful in 1990 at prosecuting homicides nationwide as we had been in 1980. Why? Because the Reagan administration, again, had ratcheted up the prosecution of nonviolent drug offenders, leaving, in effect, those really heavy-duty bad guys to be able to skate. So that was one reason. And then you get into more, and we've lost more of our civil liberties because of the war on drugs than anything in our history. And we're facing two substantial problems. And I don't mean to minimize the dangers of some of these drugs out there, particularly because they're unregulated and uncontrolled. You have no idea what you're putting into your body, and the drugs can be harmful.
Sure.
But the second problem is far worse, and that is drug money harms. And those are corrupting our children, luring them into juvenile street gangs. Look what it's done in Mexico with regard to the violence and the killing, Afghanistan, all around the world. Every town and city in our country that has juvenile gangs, we are supporting them because of the sale of illegal drugs. It only gets worse from there.
Look, the Rio Grande has never run red since the Mexican-American War. It's red again. It's ridiculous.
That's right. I've been to El Paso. I've been to Nuevo Laredo. You know, what's going on there is horrendous. It's caused not by drugs, has nothing to do with drugs. It has everything to do with drug money, and it's our drug money that has killed something like 40,000 people in Mexico in the last 2 or 3 years.
Well, the prohibition of drugs across the United States of America has led to the flooding of jails for people that are primarily nonviolent offenders. And having read some of the information that you put out, I know that that's something that really irks you. Is there a particular method that you'd like to see put in place that would allow us to adopt a more treatment-based method of dealing with this?
Absolutely.
Sure.
It's going on in Switzerland today with regard to heroin. You know, they are bringing heroin-addicted people into medical clinics, holding them accountable for what they do, but not what they put into their bodies, and they are much more healthy, or at least less unhealthy. They're not committing crimes. Crime has plummeted because now they don't have to burglarize your house or car or commit check offenses or whatever to get the money for the ridiculously priced drugs. So that's working. And honestly, everybody listening to us now knows someone that's registered to vote in California, my home state, and we're going to have on the ballot in November of 2012, this November, an initiative called Regulate Marijuana Like Wine. Go to regulatemarijuanalikewine.com and look at the language. It really is going to work, and it will be the salvation for medical marijuana dispensaries, because as we all know now, of course, the federal guns are aimed directly at medical marijuana dispensaries. They want to shut all of them down, which would be stupid, just downright flat-out stupid, because today, at least in California, marijuana is the largest cash crop. Number 2 is grapes, by the way. So, it's here, and all you're going to do if you close down the medical marijuana dispensaries, it won't reduce the amount of marijuana being sold or used. It'll just push it underground again. It's just affirmatively stupid. Regulate Marijuana Like Wine will pass if we get it on the ballot. It will sweep the country, and then I absolutely guarantee within about 3 years, everyone listening here and all around the country will group arms together and look back aghast that we could have perpetuated such a failed system for so long.
Now, there are 4 different plans in California and different proposals that may appear on the ballot in November. Please explain to our listeners why regulating cannabis like wine is the one of those 4 that you chose and preferred. And by the way, you're not the only person to have selected that particular initiative and as favorable. There are several other very notable people from California that have chosen that instead of the other initiatives.
Well, I don't see this as a competition. We are supporting any of them that would be on the ballot. We think, and we went through a lot of research and talking with people, and et cetera, to put together regulation marijuana like wine. It would actually treat it like wine. Can you raise your own? Well, you can raise your own wine. You can raise your own grapes. So, yes, you can. What about furnishing to minors? No, it's the same with regard to alcohol. It has to be 21. It would be regulated by the Alcohol Beverage Control Board, just like wine. Will it be taxed? Absolutely, just like wine. So it's a good framework. People understand. We originally thought, well, let's treat marijuana like alcohol, but it's not like alcohol. That's distilled. That's a lot more chemically based. Marijuana is not. So it also tells the federal government, we understand that the supremacy clause is there, and federal government law trumps state law, but we prohibit anyone that works with or for the state of California or any city or county to assist the federal government, the federal agents, in enforcing federal law if it conflicts with state law. We have every right legally to do that. So we look at the feds and say, yes, you can enforce this if you want to, but you're going to have to do it by yourself. And by the way, you're also going to have to come to a jury of Californians. You're going to look like bullies, which, of course, the federal government is, at least in this instance.
Oh, they've been bullies for a long time, Judge Gray. I'll tell you what, I'd like to treat our attorney generals like wine. Put them on the shelf and let them get old. I mean, because that's what let me ask you this. In the face of this for our federal government and in some places our state government, in a lot of places our state governments, how do we respond to this? How do we respond to some of this negativity? What can we do? How can we glue together and feed people some truth? Because there's a lot of truth lacking in the messages being spread around out there.
Steve asked the question, how many people listening to us, how many people anywhere believe that the federal government has all the answers? And nobody knows. Everyone knows that's not the case. Our country was founded upon the concept of federalism. That is to say, in effect, we have 50 crucibles of democracy, 50 different states, who can try one thing and see if it works best for its people or not. And if it doesn't work, then look at what your neighboring states are doing, and you can adjust accordingly. And honestly, maybe something that would work in Oklahoma, which is more agrarian, wouldn't work nearly as well in Michigan. We all have different needs and the rest. Get the federal government out of it, just like we did when we came to our senses and repealed alcohol prohibition. We did not say that now Michigan will serve alcohol. Didn't say anything of the kind. We just said that the federal government involvement will be restricted to assist each state in enforcing its chosen laws.
Well,
and that's a good way to go. That's what we will
great
do.
way to go.
And it was working with regard to alcohol. It will work with regard to these other drugs as well.
It absolutely will work. You know why? Because it's tried and true. It's already been demonstrated. The numbers are there before you. And who was it that said if you don't learn from your mistakes in the past in history, you're just destined to repeat them? I mean, and that's what we're doing here.
It's the more you get into it, the more you see that literally, and I mean this, the policy of drug prohibition is the biggest failed policy in the history of our country, second only to slavery. It has its tentacles in pretty much everything that's going wrong today.
Well,
and, you know, I myself sentenced as a judge 4 or 5 times young men for being under the influence of methamphetamines. And at time of sentencing, they're entitled to make a statement if they want to, and that's a good thing. And they tell me, Your Honor, my drug of choice is marijuana. But unbeknownst to me, somebody sold me some marijuana that was laced with methamphetamines. I smoked it a few times, and I got myself hooked. And I'm thinking to myself, look, you know, I don't favor smoking cigarettes at all, but at least if you go to your local grocery store and buy some cigarettes, you're going to know it's not laced with methamphetamines. The quality control is there. When we had alcohol prohibition, you look at the emergency rooms, we had all kinds of poisoned liquor. I called it the bathtub gin problem.
It was a big problem,
too. Kill them. It would attack their nervous system. They'd be in a coma. That absolutely went away when we repealed alcohol prohibition. So these are all things that people need to focus on, and then you focus on the fact that it's today in Michigan or anywhere else in our country easier for young people to get marijuana than it is alcohol. Ask them.
Or cigarettes.
Why? And that's right. Why? Because today the alcohol is regulated and controlled by the government, and the illegal marijuana is controlled by illegal marijuana dealers, and they don't ask for ID.
And guess what? We're not sending our money to Canada as a state treasury, because everybody wants alcohol. Every time we buy alcohol, we were sending our money to Canada. If we were a lot of times before, because they were running that stuff across the river
during Prohibition,
Certainly.
right? Yes,
certainly. In fact, I call it alcohol prohibition because we're still living in prohibition today. Today is drug prohibition. And as far as sending our money to Canada, we're also with regard to the hemp industry.
Right.
You know, Canada can raise cannabis for hemp, and then we import it. So it's $1 billion business that we're undercutting and really hurting our own farmers and our own merchants here because we don't allow hemp to be grown. It just goes on and on and on.
Well, here in Michigan, just like in California,
that's what we're doing.
Here in Michigan, just like in California, there are fallow fields all over the place. There are family farms that have been abandoned because it's impossible to afford to compete with the big agribusiness. And an influence of something like industrial hemp into a Michigan scenario would really reinvigorate an economy. We've talked about the politics of prohibition for a little bit. What about the benefits of legalization or the benefits of deregulation and decriminalization that you can see not only for California or for Michigan, but for the United States?
Well, the benefits, honestly, this is not a reason to regulate marijuana like wine, as far as I'm concerned, but it's a great side benefit. Ask our Attorney General. The summary of our initiative says we will save about tens of millions of dollars in enforcement costs every year, and we will generate potentially hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. I think that the big deal is to make marijuana less available for children than it is today, but it sure wouldn't hurt to take a lot of money away from Mexican drug cartels and juvenile gangs and put that toward fixing our roads and paying our firefighters and educating our children. Talking hundreds of millions of dollars, plus the corruption. You know, today we are luring children into juvenile gangs. They're using it as recruiting tools. Why? Join the gang and you too can be part of the action by selling illegal drugs. So that's there. We're talking about quality control, and fundamentally, look at what's happened today with regard to smoking cigarettes. And you folks in Michigan are probably smoking cigarettes more than we are here in California.
Probably.
But you're learning. You're getting better.
We're not doing it inside anymore, though.
Well, and because it's regulated and controlled. And so we have fewer people doing that, not because we've made tobacco illegal. That would just bring Al Capone or so back into the cigarette distribution business. But people, if you focus on education, they will start to see, hey, this really can be harmful. Hey, we really can regulate and control this. So that's what we'll do. We'll bring these drugs back under the law. And if you look at it, the term controlled substances is the biggest oxymoron in our lives today. Why? because as soon as you prohibit a substance, you give up all of your ability to control it whatsoever.
Exactly.
Controlled indeed. No, it's completely uncontrolled.
Very well
It's
said.
controlled by the bad guys. So it's all connected. And when it comes down to it, I talk to high school groups or whatever, and I will tell them the fundamental understanding here is prohibition never works as well as regulation and control.
Two quick
And that's the
questions.
reason.
Two quick questions, Judge, before we go to break. We only got a couple of minutes left here, maybe not even that. Normal's been around for a while. Your organization, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, has been around for a good 20 years now or better. We've also got ASA. They've been around for like 9 or 10 years. We've had these organizations speaking to our federal government. Have you seen any impact, and where do you see it coming, maybe this year or in the near future?
The impact is on the regular citizens that are listening to us here. And unfortunately, I'm going to pass along to you a conversation I had with 2 sitting congressmen here in Orange County. And they said to me, Jim, you have to understand, most people in Washington realize the war on drugs is not winnable, but it's eminently fundable, and they're addicted to the drug war funding. We're talking huge amounts of money that go into government. So do not look to the government to lead the charge for change. It has to come from us, the people that are listening. We are the voters. Look to the voters for change, and then politicians will come along.
Judge Gray, stick by 1 second. We're going to go to break. I'd like to come back and promote how people can get a hold of you. We'll be right back in the Medical Marijuana Radio Show. Don't go away. Okay, folks, listen up. Here's the deal. Due to overwhelming popularity and demand, and to the fact that we've sponsored the Medical Marijuana Buddy Awards, the first annual ever Michigan Medical Marijuana Awards are absolutely free to nominations. That's right. Because we've got sponsorship for the event. So we wanted to open up this to make it as wide as possible. And now we're accepting nominations absolutely free of charge on the front page of RadioWeedShow.com. Nominate your friend for a Medical Marijuana Achievement Award today. You can do it at RadioWeedShow.com.
The Greene Collective.
Hey, medical marijuana patients, it's time to discover what all the buzz is about in Ann Arbor.
The Greene Collective.
The Green Bee Collective is busy making sure your patient needs are met with high-quality, locally grown meds.
The Greene Collective.
Get to know the information, the research, the benefit available to your condition.
The Greene Collective.
Weekly specials in just minutes from downtown Ann Arbor and I-94.
The Greene Collective.
The details are sweet at MMMGreenBee.com. Call 734-929-2553 now.
Well, this formula is specifically to grow cannabis.
That's Ray Kogo for Kogo's Original Cannabis Formula Nutrients.
Now, everybody knows that large buds and tight buds come from genetics, and then the amount of light you use. The other part is having the correct nutrients that the plant's going to use. Mine specifically to grow cannabis, so it's going to get everything that it needs.
Ray knows what you may not. Those nutrient companies you can get in most grow shops are not cannabis specific. That means they take the stuff out of the bloom that your plant needs in bloom. You can get Kogo's Original Cannabis Formula Nutrients too. It's just 2 1-gallon jugs that make over 600 gallons of nutrients, all for less than $100. See the difference for yourself.
More trichomes, bigger buds, faster growth, and for less money.
Go to CANNABISformula.com or call Ray direct at 517-375-8998. That's 517-375-8998. Kogo's Original Cannabis Formula Nutrients. Medical marijuana certification. And now you can find out everything you need to know online at getpotid.com. Or write down this toll-free number, 855-DOC-CERT. A friendly specialist will direct you to our Farmington Hills office. Medical marijuana certification. GetPotID.com. It's the key to getting your card. Information, resources, and in the end, if you're qualified, a medical card. Call toll-free right now, 855-DOC-CERT. That's 855-DOC-CERT. It's GetPotID.com. The patient's place for medical marijuana education and safe access is Third Coast. Beautiful downtown Ypsilanti is where you can get safe, affordable access to education and materials concerning your specific needs, and quality products designed to meet your exacting needs. It's the Third Coast. 19 North Hamilton in Ypsilanti. Convenient hours, friendly, professional, compassionate. Call Third Coast today 734-487-5402. That's the Third Coast Compassion Center in downtown Ypsilanti. 734-487-5402. The law offices of Targowski and Grow remind you to stand up for your rights. Always treat law enforcement with respect, but if you're detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search or seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to talk to my attorneys, John Targowski and Daniel Grow. Targowski and Grow have the education and experience you need to be successful in Michigan courts. Call Targowski and Grow toll-free, 800-957-1069. The law offices of Targowski and Grow, 800-957-1069. The Ohm of Medicine is a state-of-the-art facility in Ann Arbor where art and passion meet patience and safe quality access. Get to the place that has top-of-the-line security, atmosphere, art, and most importantly, a highly trained and caring, compassionate staff. And the convenience is clear. Ohm of Medicine is easy to get to in downtown Ann Arbor. Private, well-maintained, handicap-accessible restrooms, convenient, secure parking in 2 nearby lots with complimentary validation. The Ohm of Medicine. Log on to omofmedicine.org. Welcome back to the Medical Marijuana Radio Show. With us on the program all the way from California today is Judge Gray with Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Judge, I didn't want to leave out the opportunity for you to promote anything you got going on, websites, books. Tell people how they can get involved with Law Enforcement Against Prohibition and really find out more about you guys, specifically you and your organization.
Well, and thank you. It is a really growing organization. It is a group. LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, is a speakers group that has people connected with law enforcement in one way or another, be it border guards or police officers or probation officers, judges, prosecutors, the rest. And so you can just find that at, leap.org. I have a website, judgejimgray.com. Gray is Gray, and I'd be happy. You can communicate with me through that, and I always respond. It just got so much that there's so much to talk about. And I ended up writing a book called Why Our Drug Laws Have Failed and What We Can Do About It, a judicial indictment of the war on drugs, probably the longest book title I've ever heard of, but you get through the title and you know where I'm going. And recently, in fact, 2 months ago, we came out with a second edition to update it for the last 10 years. And it talks about, in the first half, should really make people angry, because it talks about many of the wounds that we have inflicted upon ourselves unnecessarily because of this choice of drug prohibition. But the second half talks about options, and it talks about medical marijuana, and it talks about needle exchange programs and what's going on in Holland and Switzerland and Portugal. In fact, just quickly, how many of our listeners now even know what's happened in Portugal in the last 10 years? And the answer is pretty much nobody. I fault the mainstream media for this. Portugal realized that they had the biggest drug problems of any country in the European Union back in 2001, and they decided to decriminalize all drugs. So now when a police officer finds someone under the influence, unless they're driving a car or something, he will give them a citation not to come into a criminal justice person, but to go and see a healthcare professional. What has happened? Basically, drug usage has remained the same nationwide, so that kind of gives the lie to the drug czars in our country to say, become a nation of drug zombies if we were to change our system. Nonsense. But problem drug usage has gone down by 50%. Why? Because now people with a problem are not afraid of their own government, so they'll come to the government instead of taking their problems underground, and the government's not spending so much money on the investigation and incarceration of these folks. They have money for drug treatment. So we talk about that in the book as well. There's good things that are happening, or less harmful things that are happening. Why don't we just take our blinders off and understand that it's okay to discuss drug policy, and let's become managers instead of moralists? Because I swear to you or anyone else, we all know this gifted actor Robert Downey Jr., and he is a heroin-addicted person, and he's doing real well now.
Well, and crack, too. He was addicted to crack as well.
You know, that's right, but it makes as much sense to me to put him in jail for his cocaine problem as it would have Betty Ford in jail for her alcohol problem.
Great.
It's the same thing. It's a medical issue unless they drive under the influence or beat up their spouse or something like that. So let's use the criminal justice system for the purpose it's intended and the purpose it's good at. holding people accountable for what they do, but not what they put into their bodies. So these are the things we talk about, and I appreciate the opportunity to expose this whole line of reasoning to folks.
Just before you go, parting thought, do you think we could have some impact on the federal politics of this a little bit when we start talking about, especially to the conservative audience, because we got the Republican nominations going on?
Well, we do.
Well, wait, let me finish the thought. When we talk about conservative aspects as it relates to this subject, things about the cost of the prison system. I mean, if you're looking to cut waste and spending, we spend a tremendous amount on nonviolent criminals, incarcerating them and crunching them through the grind of the federal government. Don't you think that will have some appeal if we use that angle?
Absolutely. This has appeal across the political board. I have gotten, not many people can make this claim, I have received a standing ovation from basically giving the same talk, both to the ACLU on the one hand and the Young Republicans of Orange County on the other.
Right.
You may accent different things, but understand when we finally repealed alcohol prohibition, homicides went down by 40% the first year thereafter.
That's what they need to hear.
Reducing crime, repeal drug prohibition. If you're interested in getting rid of burglaries and everything, repeal drug prohibition. Interested in the prison overcrowding system, the United States of America leads the world in the incarceration of our people. So that's a human problem, but also it's an expense problem. My book was underscored and endorsed by George Shultz, the Secretary of State under Ronald Reagan,
Certainly.
no man's liberal, Milton Friedman, who's a hero, as well as Walter Cronkite, who's on the other side of the ledger. So, this is something that crosses all boundaries. It isn't working. From anyone's standpoint, let's repeal it. Let's allow each state to decide how best to protect and serve its people, and we'll figure out a much better way of proceeding.
It's awfully hard as a first world nation to point your finger at places like China and say, human rights, when here in this country we have 5% of the Earth's population and 30% of its prisoners.
That's right. And I read in the Los Angeles Times this morning that the United States Supreme Court is going to take the case. I can't remember what state it came from, but that now the DEA or the law enforcement are taking drug-sniffing dogs right up to your front door.
That was in Florida.
Whether or not that's a search or not. The state said, no, that's a search and you can't do it, but now the federal government, the Supreme Court's going to do it. We are losing our civil liberties. Are we in better shape because of that loss? No. And in fact, in my book, Why Our Drug Laws Have Failed, I have a whole chapter called The Erosion of Our Civil Liberties. Where's Paul Revere? Why is no one spreading the alarm? Because when you lose your civil liberties to the government, you never get them back. And our civil liberties are the soul of our country, and it's under attack.
Freedom in America. And then also, if you look at this, let's look at this idea real quick. I mean, if you're willing to trade freedom for security, you've got neither in the long run.
Yeah, that's Ben Franklin. And, again, I ask the question when I go speaking, and I do that quite a bit, how many people here feel that we in our great country are in better shape today than we were 5 years ago with regard to this critical issue of drug abuse and all the crime and misery that goes with it? No one raises their hands. I mean, we all know we're not in better shape. We're not doing it right. Okay, but look at all the civil liberties we've given up. Even so, we're not in better shape today. So these are things that everybody should be concerned about really big time, and we should change away from this failed system.
Judge, I'd just like to ask you one quick question. What's the status of your play? You're also a playwright, too, I saw online. That looks very interesting. It looks very motivational, and it looks like it's targeted right at the audience that we want to influence with these policies.
I am proud of my play, and it's been performed by Vanguard University. It's called Americans All. And basically understanding from my time in juvenile court that we're not teaching ethics and making good decisions and staying in school. So we do that in my play, Americans All, and it's in a fun way. We have playing the blame game song, and you start taking responsibility for yourself and the rest. So there's some songs on my website. Just go to judgejimgray.com and click on Americans All. And if you would like to have your high school kids or junior high school kids performing something that is a lot of fun but also talks about values, get in touch with me, and I'd be happy to have it be performed.
You're going to be singing the Blame Game song just leaving the studios here today.
Yeah. And they can get in touch with you through your website, through all of the other contacts that you have, your Facebook page, and all of your other social media accounts, too, right, Judge?
Indeed, yes. I always respond, and life is good, and there's a lot to talk about, but we need to take it upon ourselves to do it.
And you've actually mentioned a couple times today about helping children by ending marijuana prohibition and ending drug prohibition, whereas we oftentimes in Michigan get the opposite message from leadership that protecting children is the reason that they do what they do. And in reality, it's exactly the opposite. You articulated that very, very well, and I certainly appreciate you being a guest on the Radio Wood Show today.
Judge Gray from California, from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, I concur. Thank you for being on the program. Thank you for spreading this message in America and in the state of Michigan.
Anytime, we'll do it again. Regulate marijuana like wine. Help us out.
Sharmi Golson sends her regards also, too. She was not able to join us on the program today, but she says she's a deep friend of yours.
Awesome. So, look, we got Pony Boy coming up on the program. Thanks, Judge Gray. We'll talk to you soon. We'll keep in touch. We got to, talk through the email. Pony Boy from Los Marijuanos coming up on the program next on the Medical Marijuana Radio Show. Don't go away.
Got something to say?
Call now toll free 855-MMM Radio. The Medical Marijuana Radio Network.
Okay, folks, listen up. Here's the deal. Due to overwhelming popularity and demand, and to the fact that we've sponsored the Medical Marijuana Buddy Awards, the first annual ever Michigan Medical Marijuana Awards are absolutely free to nominations. That's right, because we've got sponsorship for the event. So we wanted to open up this to make it as wide as possible, and now we're accepting nominations absolutely free of charge on the front page of RadioWeedShow.com. Nominate your friend for a Medical Marijuana Achievement Award today. You can do it at RadioWeedShow.com. Medical Marijuana Certification. And now you can find out everything you need to know online at GetPotID.com. Or write down this toll-free number, 855-DOC-CERT. A friendly specialist will direct you to our Farmington Hills office. Medical Marijuana Certification. GetPotID.com. It's the key to getting your card. Information, resources, and in the end, if you're qualified, a medical card. Call toll-free right now, 855-DOC-CERT. That's 855-DOC-CERT. It's GetPotID.com.
The Greene Collective.
Hey, medical marijuana patients, it's time to discover what all the buzz is about in Ann Arbor.
The Greene Collective.
The Green Bee Collective is busy making sure your patient needs are met with high-quality, locally grown meds.
The Greene Collective.
Get to know the information, the research, the benefit available to your condition.
The Greene Collective.
Weekly specials in just minutes from downtown Ann Arbor and I-94.
The Greene Collective.
The details are sweet at MMMGreenBee.com. Call 734-929-2553 now. The Ohm of Medicine is a state-of-the-art facility in Ann Arbor where art and passion meet patience and safe quality access. Get to the place that has top-of-the-line security, atmosphere, art, and most importantly, a highly trained and caring, compassionate staff. And the convenience is clear. Ohm of Medicine is easy to get to in downtown Ann Arbor. Private, well-maintained, handicap-accessible restrooms, convenient, secure parking in 2 nearby lots with complimentary validation. The Ohm of Medicine. Log on to omofmedicine.org. Hey, Steve Greene here for the Medical Marijuana Certifications at AMMP. They're the American Medical Marijuana Professionals. You'll find them just north of Utica Road on Gratiot in Roseville. Their address is 28349. Now, call-ins are welcome, but you're better off calling for an appointment. They have a toll-free number, 877-RX-420-99. That's 877-RX-420-99 for American Medical Marijuana Professionals. That's AMMP on Gratiot in Roseville. The patient's place for medical marijuana education and safe access is Third Coast. Beautiful downtown Ypsilanti is where you can get safe, affordable access to education and materials concerning your specific needs and quality products designed to meet your exacting needs. It's the Third Coast, 19 North Hamilton in Ypsilanti. Convenient hours, friendly, professional, compassionate. Call Third Coast today, 734-487-5402. That's the Third Coast Compassion Center in downtown Ypsilanti, 734-487-5402. The law offices of Targowski and Grow remind you to stand up for your rights. Always treat law enforcement with respect, but if you're detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search or seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to talk to my attorneys, John Targowski and Daniel Grow. Targowski and Grow have the education and experience you need to be successful in Michigan courts. Call Targowski and Grow toll free, 800-957-1069. The law offices of Targowski and Grow, 800-957-1069.
When I was young, I knew something was wrong. My mother would forget to pick me up from school.
Drugs and alcohol may make you forget your problems and more.
Then she remembered something. Me! My My mom worked hard to be in recovery, and now she is here for me. Hi, Mom.
You ready? Let's go. For drug and alcohol treatment for you or someone you love, call 1-800-662-HELP. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
I like it. I really like it. Welcome back to the Medical Marijuana Radio Show. It's the 7th of January. Good Lord. As we move into the new year and we move into the politics of this, we can't miss having a little fun, too. And so if you're going to have fun, you got to invite people like Ponyboy from Los Marijuanos into the platform. So welcome to the show, Ponyboy.
How are you guys doing today? I know I'm doing. You know how I'm doing? I'm doing wonderful.
I bet Ponyboy's puffin' tough today. That's the title of Ponyboy's show, the Ponyboy's Puff Tough Show. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the Puff Tough Show started just. I saw some other people doing these little shows, you know, on Stickum, and I'm like, man, what if I could do a show where I go there and puff tough and, you know, entertain some people, give a little bit of knowledge that I have, and just all around just talk tough, you know, in front of the cams. I did it. And it's been very successful so far. So I get a lot of my fans from all over the world. I get people from Amsterdam, from the UK, from Sweden. It feels real good to know that people that come on my show are totally for the legalization of marijuana. I'm so happy that I got fans like that.
I'm telling you, Ponyboy, you guys, I'm just amazed by some of the stuff that you got out there. Tell people how you got involved with Los Marijuanos. What's the impetus behind that? What created that?
Well, we created back in the day. I'm originally from East Chicago, Indiana, and Chicago, Illinois.
Shout out to the East Side.
So I'm from out there from where you guys are at, because I stick out like a sore thumb over here. They know right away that I'm not from California or from Nevada.
Right. They know you're from the third coast, the Midwest, the Great Lakes coastlines.
You know what I'm saying? So what happened was I was DJing for a good, maybe like 10 years. And I said to myself, well, I want to make instead of me playing everybody else's record, I want to play my own record. So I want to make my own recording. So I decided to make a group. Of course, my influences that really got me into doing Los Marihuanos or putting Los Marihuanos together is my influences is a group called Total Devastation from back in the day, which was to me was the very first group to introduce me through music and visually see through their music what a hemp rally was and what a hemp rally is now. Back then, in Chicago, they weren't really doing weed fests and stuff yet, you know, when they came out. So Total Devastation and Cypress Hill were kind of like the inspiration for me to start Los Marihuanos. But what ended up happening, I ended up starting the group. I did a couple of songs, and this guy from Chicago, radio jock, real crazy guy named Mancow.
Mancow.
You know, Eric. Mancow is nuts. He happened to be a real good friend of mine. And what happened when we first came out with our songs, we did a couple shows, and the promoters came after the show. I mean, the people loved us and everything, but the promoters said, you know what, you guys will never ever play another lowrider show ever again. And we're like looking like, hey, what are you talking about, man? The people loved us, you know? He goes, dude, there's children, there's families here. You guys are talking about, you know, legalizing marijuana and smoking marijuana. He goes, I can't have that. You will never play at another lowrider show. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, oh, man, we're done. So I told my manager back then, look, there's no one that's going to play our music, bro. Nobody. He goes, don't worry, one day someone will play your music. I'm like, dude, I'm even thinking about changing the name of Los Marihuanos. Just changing it, just doing something else. And he goes, don't you dare change the name. Keep that name. Don't worry, someone's going to play your music. Lo and behold, like two days later, Mancow, the guy named Freak, calls my manager.
I know Freak, too.
Yeah, and Freak is my boy. You mentioned my name, I know all them dudes. We know, put it like this, we know each other like real good, like that.
From back in the day, huh?
We used to play the Mancow show, the morning show over at 97.1 when I worked over there.
That's crazy. Yeah, but let me tell you something. That guy right there, even though a lot of people talk about him and they slam him and people hate him and they love him, And whatever the case is, that man right there happened to break Los Marihuanos out. He was the only person on his morning show that was playing Time to Get High and Mr. Weedman.
So you were inspired by Da Supa Dupa, by Insane in the Membrane, and now you've overachieved those other bands. Now you're an identity unto yourself, right?
You know what I'm saying? But the thing is with Cypress Hill, I mean, I got love for them. Yeah, they were the ones to, like, you know, quote unquote, whatever, to bring the enlighten people to smoking marijuana even more, but or kind of the legalization thing. But most of the Cypress Hill stuff was street stuff. If you really listen to their first album, you know, their first album, hey, because I could just kill a man. I ain't trying to kill nobody. I'm trying to get the person high. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, Pony Boy, the show's about to end. We got about 50 seconds left. I wanted to fill it with a chance for you to drive people to your websites, drive people to your material. How can people discover Los Marijuanos and Pony Boy?
Man, please, you guys, please visit hempvisiontv.com, and you'll be able to get all the information from there, hempvisiontv.com and losmarihuanosmusic.com. And you'll find all the music, guaranteed that you'll love it, because it's definitely the message. It's definitely free the weed, and definitely I'm a messenger of Jack Hare and Eddie Lapp. Hemp will save the world, my nuggets. Hemp will save the world.
Hemp will save the world.
I'll do whatever I have to do to spread that message.
All right, thanks for being on, Pony Boy. I got to introduce Pony Boy to Richard Clemens Sr., Rick Thompson. Thanks for being on the program. More to come next week on the Medical Marijuana Radio Show. Thanks for coming.
The Medical Marijuana Radio Show and RadioWeedShow.com are trademarks. Copyright 2011.